see to work, get more done, unlock more time, more money, and more freedom.
Join us as we explore the challenges and power of making work visible. Welcome to the Visible Workplace Podcast with Dr. Tom Rolley.
Now, let's get into today's episode.
All right, welcome to today's episode of the Visible Workplace. It is a special episode, and I'm excited to have our guest today, Dylan Watkins. He is an AI expert, and obviously AI has come to dominate the conversations that many business people are having. I'm excited for what we're going to cover today. We're going to look at a whole bunch of interesting things that you need to be across as a business owner, not only for what's happening right now, but what we're going to deal with in the future. Dylan, welcome to the podcast. How you doing, mate?
Good, brother. Glad to be here, Tom. Super excited to talk about that. This is my passion, and I am deep in the world of AI and AI agents.
Perfect. All right. So we're already into the idea of AI agents, first line, but I love it. Before we get to there, could you share what do you do at the moment, and then also your journey briefly into AI?
Yeah, 100%. So I build essentially AI agents, automated growth systems for businesses, primarily coaches and consultants. I look to see what are the bottlenecks in the business, and then I build these systems and patterns to install into the business to free up those bottlenecks so they can grow to the next constraint level. I got started in 2014 in high technology when I backed Kickstarter, virtual reality, Oculus headset. Did that for a number of years, ran communities, 1,500 developers in my communities, doing hackathons and game jams for like UCI, USC, MIT. I got investment in 2019 for AI, for this product that I was building out. Worked with the government for a while, building things like that and some space robots and that kind of jazz. And then when the pandemic hit, it shut down that AI project. So I took a back seat from it until ChatGPT came in. Started getting into that, created a TikTok channel, did about 55,000 followers on there, all around ChatGPT, and then started building out these automated workflows and these AI systems for companies, install them in the businesses as people had these different needs, and then just kind of took off from there.
Very nice. All right, so it began 2014. What came to me straight away is I'd love to drop back to that 2019 version of AI that you were dealing with, and then looking at what we've got today. What's the difference? Like, is it generationally massively different, or is it like, no, I could already see what was happening with these things back then? What's your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, the same thing with programming. There's every time there's an iteration on programming, it gets easier for the common person to be able to build on top of it. So back in the day, 2019-ish, I mean, AI has been around way longer than that, but there was a lot more training. You had to go and train the model on something very specific. And the way that humans learn is the way AI learns is that you go, okay, you see this is a circle, or this is a human's face, and you give enough training and labeling, then over time it has pattern recognition. Right. So that's what we had to do a lot back in the day. We would train it on, say, verbiage. Okay, this is what this word means. And then it would understand meaning or intent or detecting cancer, whatever it might be. Nowadays, it's already been pre-trained on so much data that it seems like a general computer. There's this general type of information. So whether you want to write a book or give you a diagnosis, it can do a lot of those things because it's already been pre-trained for you to be able to do the things now. And it's only going to grow and iterate from here, where it's going to be easier and easier for people that have less technical ability to be able to produce more.
Okay, that's very interesting. So back in the day, basically, it could only handle a certain topic versus now we basically have this generalized AI that's been trained on a lot of information, and therefore whatever the prompt is, then I can come up and it can answer that. And that's certainly been my experience. The moment that I was like, oh, what are we dealing with here, was when my son came to me in grade 12 maths. He's in his final year. He's like, hey, Dad, can you give me a hand with the maths? Now, it's been 30 years since I was dealing with those things. I had no idea. I'm like, I wonder if ChatGPT can do it. And I typed in, can you please explain how to do this differentiation question in calculus? And up it comes with not only the answer, but also all the little symbols and everything. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Is that, I mean, I presume most people have had that experience now. How much are you seeing people go, oh, this is a game changer. This, I have to be on this? Or is it still an option right now in business to go, I'm just going to leave it a couple more years? I mean, what's your take on the requirement to be in the AI world and across this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, human superpower is our ability to collaborate through space and time using technology. It's the thing that's always given us the unfair advantage. It allowed us to dominate the planet. And so the thing is you might have a little area that you have saved off and you have good relationships. And there's certain areas like a very safe place right now is like a dog groomer. It's not really going to get replaced because of the interaction with it. It's less likely. But if you're in any type of knowledge working space, any type of marketing or sales or really anything online, is that the difference is this is I often equate it to the other day I was running down the street and I was going for a jog by the beach by my house and I saw this car pass me by and I tried to race the car and I was like, that's kind of silly. But that's what people are doing is that people think, oh, well, I've got feet. I can go fast. But then you compare that to a car and it's just undeniably, you're never going to beat it. So anybody that properly installs AI into their business, you're never going to keep up with them. You're never going to beat them. You're never going to outdo them. And so that's really good. Now, there are areas that people tend to over AI too soon, and they usually fall into some pitfalls, which happen more often than not. And so, really, my job is to really slow them down and really lay out the map and territory, and then make sure that what they're actually building isn't just a gimmick or hype, but actually delivers real value.
So why don't we look at that probably from two perspectives. One is, hey, if I'm having wins and I recognize that the AI is the car, I'm not going to beat it, but I need to be the driver. What are my best practices? Where do I start? What should I be using? What should I be doing? Just let's say that I'm in one of those experiences of being in sales or being a business owner, being a team member. And I'm noticing that, I mean, my estimate is it's around 20x faster. Like I specifically built an offer, me manually going through it took 24 minutes, even with all the instructions out of Alex's book. I think I saw that behind you. And then I dropped hey, can you just produce an offer that meets this avatar? And 30 seconds later, a better offer came out. So 24 minutes for me to do it manually. And then 30 seconds, 45 seconds, whatever it was, out comes this offer that I'm like, that's a very good offer. So let's look at best practices. But then also you just mentioned what people going too far, wanting to do too much, decreasing the hype. What are the traps? So kind of two frames for you to work with. What have you got?
Yeah. So the way I like to think about this is people see the AI and they figure if they're just a power user of ChatGPT, then they're at the tip of the spear. And while a lot of people aren't using it, it's very easy and it's a very low-hanging fruit to get in. And so because of that, it's not really an unfair advantage. The thing that I always try to do with people is really to understand the constraints of the business and say what's stopping you. So I go through like several levels. So one, you map out what people are currently doing, right? Let's just say it's marketing and sales, for example. Okay, what's the patterns inside of there? And then once you know that, you can create SOPs, right? Standard operating procedures. This is the step-by-step process. And then behind that, you then throw into a system. And then inside of that system, you then lay AI on top of it. People want to skip, 1, 2, and 3, and then go right into AI without that. And then the other challenge with that is they'll build a system, but they won't iterate on top of it. They figure, oh, I did this one time, I'm done. Without going back and really optimizing the system, you don't get a chance to be able to actually grow and develop those skill sets. And so what I really say is fall in love with the problem, not the solution you're building, and then make sure that what you're building actually really solves a problem. It's not just something that's shiny and bright.
Okay, all right. So we're into SOPs, one of my favorite topics. And can I share a story here that I was in? I'm in one of let's go Frank Kern's experience for Rainmaker AI, and going through the videos, it's basically an SOP in video format. And I was able to extract the prompts, extract the steps in order, and I posted it up, and people were like, this is fantastic. The information was there in the course, but it wasn't particularly easy for most people to extract the prompts and extract the actual order, basically create the SOP. And so just having done that, they were then able to go drop the prompts into the various AIs and get the work done much quicker. Is that basically what you're describing? That essentially without those step-by-step processes, adding AI in too early isn't going to get me the results that I want?
Yeah, it's like unless you can see the entire map, what happens, especially with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of entrepreneurs have ADHD, a lot of them have dyslexia, and a lot of them just go, let me just go into the forest, and they'll sprint in the forest. All right. And then they'll get halfway through the forest and then they're lost. And that's like, just let ChatGPT do it. And if you look at the whole map, right? If you look at the entire map, like I had somebody who was wondering why their sales and marketing wasn't working. And then when I went to actually dive in to see what was going on, there was no clear handoff between marketing and sales. And the marketing guy just said, "Oh, this is like Coca-Cola. We're just letting people know we exist." And I'm like, that is not the point of marketing. But unless I actually stopped and forced them, because what they said is just put AI in my business. Once we could map it out, we could see that there's gaps in what's going on inside of the map. We could say, okay, we really need to plug these holes, and there's different ways to do it. I mean, you can have AI notify you when there's a gap inside the system. You could have AI analyze data. You could have an AI book calls for you. There's so many things that you could have AI do, but those are all little shiny pieces that are useful. But without understanding that there's a gap between marketing and sales and what that real handoff needs to be, then people are just trying to plugging holes in the ship one piece at a time versus going, you know what, maybe we need to actually do a whole refactor on the ship, or maybe we need a whole new ship to be able to get to that next level.
I presume you have read The Goal. Have you read the book called The Goal?
No,
You read
actually, I
this one?
haven't. No, I heard about
It's where he describes the theory of constraints, and essentially you're talking about, hey, if it doesn't matter if I have a lot of things working, if there's a busted piece and I can't identify that, then I won't get what I want. It's a very, and I've even seen, like, my thought process has been like, it doesn't matter if AI does the work 20 times faster if I don't get the final results working. And I presume you've seen this.
Yeah. And there's two sides of the coin on this one. Like, so for example, a lot of people go, my business is not growing. And they're like, I don't have leads. And then I go, well, what marketing you're doing? And they're like, none. But I wish I had more leads. And there's like, okay, well, what do we think the constraint is right now? What's really going on? And if you look at that, or I have marketing, but I don't have a good lead magnet, there's different spots in the business that you could clearly see there's this obvious blind spot in the business, and there's ways to plug it. So to the point, I've only found this through my process of, because I've had to map and create a bunch of systems, I've built a bunch of applications and processes and things like that. I try to run what's called the human design perspective. Human-centric design is where you basically see what humans do, and then you map out that path of what the human is doing, and then you build into that human path, that human behavior, a thing that is natural and intuitive versus trying to get them to do a whole new thing. And so that's where I really try to approach it from.
Perfect. Okay. What I heard before is like, if you hear the words or you're thinking, what was it? Just get AI in, or just put AI into this, that should be a major warning sign that we're missing steps here. If I don't already know the steps that are required for the final result, then it doesn't really matter that just throwing AI isn't going to solve all of my problems.
No, it won't. I mean, it feels good because you get a lot of output. Like, here's the things. Humans love progress. They hate waiting for it. And so that's why we like the Rocky Balboa montage, right? Because you get to see him do 12 months of hard work and dieting and fitness in a 60-second montage. And because of that, a lot of our ability to delay gratification has gone away. And so if you can just throttle back, and it's a lot of the things that I get as what's the benefit of working with, I just hear this a lot, is like I'm able to slow people way down more than they want to go. And I go, okay, explain to me step one. I'll give you an example. I have a guy who I'm working with who's got a huge product line, old school, and he would paste and match in, and it'd take him about 2 to 3 hours to make these proposals. And because of that, it would take a bunch of time. And he's like, I just wish AI would do this for me. And from that, what we had to do is we had to actually take a step back. And I said, okay, I want you to walk me through your sales process. I want you to show me when you ask this question, what happens? When you ask this question, what happens? And then we'd have to map together and basically be able to say, okay, these are all the elements in your business. These are all the things, these are all the questions. This is how you get clarity on what you're doing. And then we map that to AI. So now for him, all he needs to do is click a couple of buttons and it makes a really complex proposal that would normally take him 2 to 3 hours a day to make. It now does it for him in like 2 to 3 minutes and then outputs it super fast and easy. But I had to slow him down and go, I know you want AI, but you have to be able to explain it to me and walk me through exactly what you want. And the thing with most entrepreneurs is that they're big visioned, terrible at details. And so you need some sort of counterbalance to be able to map that system, because once you can map it, we can train the AI, we can have them go do it. But just asking ChatGPT to look at all your product, catalog and then produce it for you, it's not going to get you the desired result. You're going to get frustrated. And then what most people do is they quit and they revert back to what they knew. I'll just go back in the ChatGPT and ask it questions and then just go at that level. They'll never be able to build a taller skyscraper because they haven't built the foundations required to get up to that height.
Okay, so really, I do need to be able to see what the business is up to, see what steps there are, even breaking it down in terms of the gentleman producing the quote. It's like which bit goes here, which bit goes here, which bit goes here, and getting specific details. And then with that vision, then you can come in and go, I can speed this step, I can speed this step, I can speed this step up.
Yeah.
Is that what
It's
I'm
like,
hearing? Or have I got this
yeah,
correct or not?
you got it correct. It's like training an employee. Most people is they hire an employee and then they just go and say, "Hey, you go do everything." They don't perform, then you get mad, you yell at them, and then they quit, right? And so
The,
that's
right, the
that's
common
what
employee
happens.
experience.
That's
Sorry.
that's that's how it works. Or you hire a sales guy, they don't know how to sell, but you've never sold anything and you're trying to tell him to sell, but you don't have any sales chops. And so what happens is business owners, they'll come in, hire a salesperson, they don't do what they want, but they don't know how to sell, and then they come across this problem. The biggest thing this is, if you can map out exactly what you want AI to do, you can build AI and automated systems or AI agents. And just for a definition, when I say agents, all I mean is the ability to take actions, right? GPT is generative. So Midjourney generates images. Sora generates videos. GPT generates text, right? Agents take actions. So they run around, they click buttons, they produce reports, they do a bunch of complicated systems. And so you can train it to do anything that you want as long as you can map out that system. But the thing is, if you can actually do that deep work on the front end, like it was, it took us a couple of weeks, not, maybe 20 hours total with the dude to be able to do this. But now, instead of taking 3 hours or whatever, 2 or 3 hours, it takes him 5 minutes. That pays dividends on the backside. And so training employees, training the AI, training anything always takes time up front. But on the backside, you have so much more freedom and then you can scale and grow. Otherwise, you hit that ceiling of productivity where you can't work more than 14 hours a day, and then your wheels fall off.
All right, so I really like this definition. I had this vision of kind of AI agents talking to other AIs and suddenly it would kind of work out what to do. But that's not what you're saying. Essentially, it's almost like having to step by step follow steps, but it could do that. It's like do this first step, do this second step, do this third step, presumably quicker than I can.
A thousand times faster. Yeah.
Thousand times faster. So it's the Ferrari. It's of the car. I'm still on foot. It's a Ferrari. Can I ask a question here? So let's come back to my Frank Kern experience, where I've
Sure.
dropped out the SOPs for use this prompt, use this prompt, use this prompt, use this prompt. Is that something that could then go to an AI agent and it would be able to run from the initial, hey, this is what I'm selling, and it just does all of these, I think there's 6 steps or something, 6 prompts, and it would run through and create those?
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Yeah, 100%. So you create the SOP, and maybe one of the SOPs is feeding in a series of prompts. I have a Alex Ramosi $100 million offer prompt stack that goes through 8 different prompts where it just goes through line by line and does that. But I'll give you like a practical tactical. Like on my website, I have a quiz that someone can fill out to find out what gaps they have in their AI automation, right? But what I
Yep.
did is I built out where you could fill out a bunch of the questions. That then goes to an AI. It analyzes all the information. It then turns that into a diagnosis of what the gaps are. It then formulates that into an email, templates it out nicely, puts a call to action with a link to book me, and then automatically messages them, messages me, and then drops them into my CRM. Right. So I have a series of steps that I'm using the AI to do. But what would someone normally do? Right? Normally, someone, if you're trying to do it manually, you'd get a report in, you'd look at it, you'd analyze it, you'd look for the gaps, you would then construct an email, send it out. Now, maybe you have templated response, like one of four things, right? And then you could put that in. But if you're really truly doing it, all I'm saying is that if you want to call it an AI agent, is taking actions for me. It's processing it, it's producing it, it's sending it, it's notifying me. I do a lot of things with text messages. So like when leads come in or other things happen, I like to be notified via text message because that's the lowest, like I'd say, area of it gets my attention the most. And so I build a lot of agents that will text message notify for critical issues. Either the building's on fire or a lead came in or something happened that you need to respond to. Because to me, it's like if you had an employee on your team, you're like, send me an email if it's kind of important, text me if it's really important. So that's what I mean by that. Is just that's a way to use an agent that would actually be valuable.
I really like that the choice of text messages because I do think they come through and gain attention more so than email and even more so than perhaps a Slack or a chat app. Because I just was dealing with this problem actually. One of my friends said, "Hey, when somebody completes a form, I've got it to notify me in Slack." Which is probably closer to a text message, but
Mhm.
it still doesn't have that punch that a text message does. It's like, hey, just got a lead, here's their number, call John, boom. That's a really great choice. I also just deleted my email app off my phone because I was finding it was triggering too much hiding from work. So email is definitely not a great choice. But even I think because there's so much data still going through the chat apps with human beings, with decisions, that text message is a great choice. Very
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's a get your. No one ignores a text message. Many people ignore emails.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, all right, cool. So let's segue for 1 second. You mentioned on your website you have this diagnostic tool. What is your
Mhm.
website? If people are interested, how do they find you?
Yeah, sure. It's Dylan J. Watkins .com, DYLANJWATKINS.com. It's there.
Perfect.
And yeah, so you can check it out.
All right. Quick question. I love this one came to me the other day. People are like, it seems like we've put a huge amount of resources into AI, and that certainly seems like the big players have done that. Billions and billions, trillion, I don't know how much, like it's $750 billion in capital
Hmm.
expenditure. Revenues haven't really appeared. This seems to be the issue. But the question that was asked, have we hit a plateau in AI? What's your thoughts on this? Because already my mind has been opened up that, oh, hang on, if ChatGPT prompt engineering is the lowest rung, and now you're talking about adding AI agents on top, what are your thoughts? AI plateau, are we going to see investment, return on investment? And then maybe a third question, what's possible?
Sure, sure. Yeah, absolutely not. We've got way, way, way more to go in the realms of what's the capabilities of AI. Part of the thing is there's this, subpar human intelligence, and then there's, this general intelligence, and then they have, SGI, which is super intelligence, which is going to be smarter than us. So we're progressing past that. And that's what we're moving to. In terms of what's possible, OpenAI has a standing bet, not if, but when the first billion-dollar company is going to be created with one person. One person running it, $1 billion company. Absolutely impossible to do without some form of AI helping you to make that possible. There's been companies that have been doing hundreds of millions with a team of 5 or 10 or 12, but this is where we're progressing. Whenever you, whenever anything new comes out that's valuable, there's always going to be this hype train where a bunch of people jump into it, but they don't have the chops to sustain. And when that happens, the thing is, a bunch of people drop off. And for example, decades ago, I used to own a gourmet food truck catering business. It was one of my first businesses, became successful, had dozens of employees, sold it, did well, jumped into technology later. But what happened was this: the new wave of food trucks were here. And what happens, anybody could start a food truck. And so you had amazing gourmet Michelin star chefs, and you had Bob, who just thought starting a business would be cool, and got some money together and started it. They're not the same. They're both inside food trucks, but they're not the same people. The thing is, it's so easy for anybody to start AI, but not everybody has the chops to build a business because it still takes hard work and effort and energy. And so one of the things I always say is use AI to become more, not do less. And what I mean by that is the fact is that people are looking at it as like, oh, wow, the work I could do in an hour, I can do in 10 minutes. So now I only got 10 minutes of work. Great. The guy who figures out how to put in 10 hours of work while you put in 10 minutes of work, he's just going to go so far past you so much faster that the distance, it's not, a faster guy sprinting next to you. It's you on a tricycle, him in a Ferrari, right? And just the distance is going to be that much bigger. And so the thing is that everybody sees the ROI, but of these really crappy entrepreneurs starting these AI businesses, not knowing how to perform as a business person, them dropping off. And there's plenty of companies that are making a killing with AI, leveraging it in the right way to deliver value and solving a real problem that are going to have the competitive advantage. But when anybody can get in like a food truck, then the problem is you can't separate them and they all look the same.
Interesting, right? Yeah. So are we at that point now, or it doesn't feel like it? It feels like the people who know what they're doing in business are going to have a significantly strategic advantage in terms of if they're already good and then I add AI in, then it will make them great versus someone who really is we're just going to market like Coca-Cola from your earlier example, and just adding AI into that doesn't sound like they're going to get the significant results that perhaps they might have thought. Is that, and so like my skill sets as a human are going to dictate the results that the AI gives me. Is that correct?
100%. Yeah. And the thing is yeah, with any low level fruit is going to be picked by the big juggernauts. And so OpenAI will come out like, so vectorized memory, the ability to store lots of data in the long-term memory of the brain of AI and be able to recall it. So uploading a book, there was companies dedicated to this solution. And the thing was, it's really common to make. I built several for my clients for different things that they were using it for. OpenAI comes out with the ability to now do that, and you have 1,000 AI companies wiped out overnight because they realize, oh, that's just one feature. So you really there's a thing that they talk about, the three moats, right? And the three moats of AI when you're building something is, is it useful? Is it useful? Is it personal and customizable? And then is it defendable? Right? Defendable means that's the big one is what is your unfair advantage? And that could come to the thing of you have an audience that other people don't have access to. You have the ability to have some sort of unique data set that nobody else has access to. Or it could be on the edge, some sort of moat that protects you. So like I was doing some work with Walmart. All of their AI are basically on-prem. It's on premises. And so you can't get into their AI because it's on-prem. And then fourth one is there's some sort of legality rules, right? OpenAI and Sam Altman were like, hey, we should really outlaw anybody else's ability to make these types of AI. It's another way to defend yourself. So you got to figure out in what way can you defend yourself versus having just another company come in and disrupt your marketplace.
I did have the book experience with ChatGPT about 4 days ago as my middle son was required to produce quotes for the book that he had read. And I was like, have you got the book? He's like, no. I just type it into ChatGPT, hey, can you give me a quote relevant to the theme of this section? And it brings up the quote. Having said that, I was happy with that experience because we were having a discussion around what are the themes of the book. And he was able to say, well, there's a theme of this, there's a theme of that, there's a theme of this other thing. So there was a understanding that was going on. It was just the grunt work of flicking through the book to identify the particular quote was not really there, because at his level, he's 13, the ability to underline a relevant quote and extract it at the time of reading wasn't there. I didn't really want to read the book. I'm like, I'm tired. Let's just see. But clearly the ChatGPT did have that knowledge and that skill set to do it. And it's kind of interesting that, or you said that previously there were all of these businesses working on that, and then it's just eliminated by the big players.
Yeah. So let's dive into this a little bit. One, I think it's great. I give talks to like universities and stuff around AI and jazz. And I think it's so funny that like universities are the slowest to adopt. The people that learn and teach, they can't seem to learn things like use Zoom during a pandemic or use AI. And back in my day, we couldn't use calculators, right? Because it was unfair. But the thing is that you're limiting people from using the tools that are available to integrate it. The best thing ever is for your son to be able to use ChatGPT as much as humanly possible, to be able to really give him those skill sets. At the same time, it's something that you can do so many other things with it. Like, so for example, you could have taken the book inside of there and said, I want you to turn this into an interactive game, where you make it into a game show. And then now you're asking my son questions that are giving him points based upon the questions that are inside of here, turning it more into an experience for them. Right. That's one of the types of use cases. And the reason why I know this is one of my clients, I'll tell you what they do, and I'll just so you can kind of think of what's possible. One of my clients was a nonprofit, and she just had an idea to make social emotional learning in virtual reality, but she really didn't know how to execute on it. And so what I did is mapped out the system, found out what the real valuable issue was, and realized that the people that they're serving were young disadvantaged youth that didn't have social emotional learning skills. They couldn't communicate on the job. And so they'd get into these huge conflicts. And so they didn't know how to handle themselves in high stress situations. So essentially at a high level, we took a VR application, we plugged it into the back of ChatGPT, and then what they could do is they could practice real world experiences, difficult conversation with the boss, an angry coworker, another type of person, and they would be speaking and talking with AI. It would be speech to text, going back to translating through voice, coming back through the system. Then AI would grade and rate them on their performance and how they did. Now, this type of thing solves a real world problem because one, people are expensive. They could practice on their own. Two, creates psychological safety and allows a kid to be able to practice in their own safe place. Three, it was something that was an experience that they could go through that would allow them to be able to know through the experience, what's called embodied cognition of doing an activity. That thing took off like wildfire. She got well over 7 figures in funding, is deployed across the US, doing very, very well, and is evolving the system to do so much more with it. But that's the evolution of taking something that generates text or words or images, slamming that into an experience, allowing someone to go through it in a unique way that gives them the skill sets required to be able to leverage it in the real world.
It just gives them so many more at-bats without having the consequences that come from a failed experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a use case of not just saying, well, it just gave me answers. Okay, well, how can we modify this to turn it into an experience that is retained? Because it's like this, I do plant medicine. And when I do loads of plant medicine, I might get an insight like we are all one. Because I'm having a very powerful experience, that hits me a little bit different than if I'm on Instagram on my 37th post and I see a post that says we are all one. And so that's what I'm saying, that how can you turn these things into experiences using the technology available so that it can alter the person and be able to leverage that experience to shift their behavior?
Very interesting. Has she applied this to business cases? I mean, it feels like being a pilot where I can land in the difficult runway 82 times before actually doing it for real. If I mess it up in the sim, it doesn't matter, versus, I don't know, just having to do it blind the first time, consequences are severe. Has she taken it to business case usage?
She's done some uses in business. She's evolved it past that to doing some more experiences with it that are more business use cases like behavioral interviews and things like that. And there's more use cases beyond that, but that's just a vertical. That's just one small vertical slice of what happens when you take that. Now, it's a bit more involved than ChatGPT because you have to build a virtual reality application. You have to be able to do a lot more to it. But again, that's kind of part of her moat. It's like good luck for another nonprofit to go and try to create that type of experience on the backside, because what they do is they throw volunteers at a problem, right? They take a bunch of people versus this is this scalable solution. So yes, the business applications, you could see all the different ways
Yeah,
that you could use that.
there's obvious. Yeah.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
can Okay, interesting. But that moat that you spoke of is because they had a lot of volunteers, they had a lot of people that could get into this experience. They're having a win. They're like, this is really cool. We're seeing results in these kids.
Well,
But one of the moats was having the deployable volunteers in order to
well,
get the people in rather than maybe having ad spend
not
or whatever.
not entirely. The moat is that it took money, time, technical expertise. Like for example, uh, ChatGPT and OpenAI, not that to my knowledge, is going to be coming out with a behavioral simulator in virtual reality. They can't push a feature update and make that happen, right? That's not going to be their piece, right? So what her thing is, it's a very technically complex, expensive system to be able to build, and it takes time and attention to be able to build that type of system out. The benefits on the backside is you can save so much time and cost and get better at it, and you have real true data on is someone actually performing, right? Versus you hire Bob from down the street to go do some mock interviews and he goes, yeah, Johnny did a great job. How do you measure that? How do you know if they did that? There's so much data that you can get from something like that that is just, it's immeasurable. But again, you'd have to be willing to dig the foundation of that system and then build that from the ground up. Other people can recreate it. It's just, it's going to take time. And she's now have an unfair advantage because she's already deployed in the marketplace. So if someone thought of it today, this is something that we spent, 18 months building out for her to get it just right. And so that's kind of the
that
advantage.
that memory or that brain space is taken up. If I came out with that idea, they're like, "Oh, you just copied that," even though it is AI, even though it is the I see what you now mean, that the moat is the investment, the skill sets, the time that went in to create it, and it is not a ChatGPT clone. It's actually a standalone experience that is hard
Yeah.
to replicate without going through all of those. And she's already established that particular
Yeah.
beachhead in the market.
Yeah, I will say this though. There is something to ChatGPT clones. When we're talking about defendable moats, um, one of the things we talked about, right? I said is unique data. And so a lot of things that I've seen that people I've worked with is there's the fourth thing, right? You have do it yourself, right? You have done with you, you have done for you, and then I have another model called done by AI, which means basically it's the best of this kind of interactive type of experience, but also done with AI. And what have I seen with a lot of specialty coaches, like sales coach that I know that we ended up building him a system. We took his proprietary knowledge, what he's really good at, the things that make him great at selling, this behavioral style selling, right? And we built, if you want to call it a chat GPT clone, but a model that I've seen a ton is that you take specialized knowledge, you basically throw a chat GPT wrapper around it, and then you offer that to your community. It's very hard to recreate that because he spent 35 years in sales, so someone else could make another AI clone, but they don't have his specialized knowledge that's now trained the AA on that gives them the ability to get that benefit, which the ultimate benefit is how do I sell to your personality type? Make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so it is sort of a ChatGPT, but it's trained on specialized knowledge, and therefore it is for that specialized experience. It's not something that OpenAI is going to chase after. They're like, that's not our baby. But if you want to train on your specialized knowledge, we can
Yeah.
have our AI learn that and then deploy to your students to increase their rate of learning, they increase their experience of how do I implement this.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. Because I think that the one of the interesting focuses that I've seen is like it's not good enough anymore just to sell the thing. I also need to make sure that the results occur, that my students as a coach are actually getting the results that they signed up for. It's not okay. Well, it's still happening, of course, but really I want to make sure that I'm ethically selling. hey, I offering you this result and I can ensure that this happens. And if the AI really increases the likelihood of that happening, then that's massive. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the thing is
The
like, how can you take that specialized knowledge and provide it at scale, right? And that's the thing. You trained a book. Now let's turn that book into an interactive game that takes that specialty knowledge and delivers it into a format that increases retention, and retention turns into action. And there's a bunch of different ways to do this. And so, in OpenAI had a brilliant move where they're like, look, we can't steal your data, but we'll give you GPTs. How about you guys upload all of your data to us? We'll give you the ability to make your own custom GPTs. We'll gather all your data ethically and provide value to you, which is a very sneaky maneuver of being able to get that data set. So, but
yeah.
essentially,
Obviously, the privacy issues or whose data is it, all of that kind of stuff. We are in a minefield
for
for
sure, Bill.
sure.
Yeah.
All right,
There's
so
nothing you can do.
so having been through this, if I'm a business owner and I'm
Yeah.
underway, my business is operating at a reasonable level, but I'm concerned about how do I think through what should I do next? We've got opportunities, we've
Mhm.
got current broken constraints. Like, how do I even think with all of this opportunity going on?
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a hard thing. There's a sense of overwhelm. And then whenever there's a sense of overwhelm, people default back to old behaviors and patterns, right? If I said, "Hey, I'm going to give you 137 different ways that you can improve your business," you're like, you you take a step back and your eyes go big. So if we said this, let's start with ask yourself these questions. And I believe that every quest starts with the right question and it points you into the direction where you need to go. And with that, I would look at this. Where in your business are you constrained? For example, pretty much always it's going down these two buckets. Do you not have enough leads or do you not have enough time? Right? That's almost always one of two. If you don't have enough leads, then that falls around sales and marketing. With marketing, there is a ton you can do. You can create AI clones of yourself. You can create books. You can break down your books into social media content using AI. You can make AI podcasts. You can make there's a breadth and depth of the things that you can do with AI around the marketing area. You just kind of figure out what area of the marketing do you want to tackle. Then you step into sales. Okay, are leads falling off in the sales cycle? Well, what can you do in the areas of sales? Well, there's a ton you can do. You can take all your transcripts that you have that are recorded from Zoom. You could upload that into AI, have AI analyze your sales transcripts and give you coaching advice on where you're lacking in your ability to sell. You can then have AI role play with you back and forth on your sales skills and give you real-time advice inside of ChatGPT to get better at sales. You could also have AI follow up with leads, lead nurturing, all that fun stuff. So, for example, those are some categories over there. On the fulfillment side, every business is different, but what you could see is, okay, well, where are the bottlenecks in my business? How do I shorten the time to value for when I have someone sign up? Like, so for example, like someone signs up with me, I built AI systems and automated systems that like in a sales conversation, I can generate a proposal on the call within 5 minutes. They get it. As soon as they get it, they sign the document, they pay. As soon as they sign a document, pay, automated systems to onboard them into Slack, send them the welcome message, send them these all the things, right? So very quickly, you're shortening that onboarding time because people are going to judge you within 24 hours of them giving you money on are you delivering value? And so you can shorten that cycle where you're losing attrition, right? And so it just depends on where you're at in your business. And if you say, okay, this is my constraint, this is what I'm not doing. Okay, what are the things that I can do in this category that can solve these problems? And if you don't know, you can talk back and forth with ChatGPT about it, or there's a bunch of different ways to kind of figure out what that is. But I would just focus on one constraint at a time.
Okay, all right. So we got what I'm hearing here is there's basically two main games of business. One is have I got sales, lead to sales conversion to customer. And
Mhm.
then if I'm handling that, then potentially on the fulfillment side, I've got a problem of not enough time because maybe we sold too much
Mhm.
or my methodologies are inefficient. I haven't been, things got dropped. And so
Yeah.
will identify the constraint, and
Yeah.
I'm suspecting that I might be able to spot that by, is this a fire? Is this a fire going on why do we keep having this fire in my business? They bought and now they're quitting, or they're asking for a refund because nothing happened for 10 days after they bought. Fire, I'm on the phone saying, hey, yep, sorry about this, we messed up. But if that keeps happening, then that identifies potentially a constraint.
Sure. And what you could do with that, I mean, I want to, there's, again, you can do complex systems, but for example, if you go to ChatGPT and you say, hey, I run this business, people keep leaving because of this. Could you give me 10 questions that I could ask my customers about ways to find out what's going on? You jump into a call like this, you have maybe Fathom AI running in the background. You then ask them all those questions. You then save all those questions. You turn them in transcripts through Fathom, or you use Descript or whatever it might be. You dump that back into AI and go, here's all of the complaints that my company is having around the drop off and the attrition of my business. Can you come up with some sort of things that I can put in place, some recommended solutions that would help decrease the churn based upon unique data that I only have access to? And then I got it through talking to humans about what's going on in my business. And that's what the thing that will give you the advantage.
Okay, right. So it's not the generalized ChatGPT response. It's like, hey, this is the answers that I got from talking to the human beings who told me these. I can upload that, then the AI analyzes it and give me my specific recommendations for what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, that work presumably could be done by humans as well. It's just vastly faster.
Yeah, you can do it by that. I mean, I'm, again, a human-centric designer, so usually people go, I've got this big crazy idea thing I want to build, and I go, great, let's talk to your customers. Let's talk to those potential clusters. I'm building something in the fitness space, and this big fitness influencer guy wanted me to build it for him. I'm like, great, if you want to build it right, give me 3 months of talking to your customers. And so we did. We spent 3 months talking to his customers, and he's like, this is exactly what I want to build. I was like, great, let's do a paper prototype and let's show it to your customers. 2 months later, we did 20 iterations on it. And he's like, oh my God, I was way off. Because almost all of your business problems can be solved by your customers. And the thing is you can do that through behavioral interviews and understanding their needs, wants, desires, methodologies, language that they use, things like that. And you could analyze it. You could have someone like me go in and do that, but you could also do the same thing. You could get crazy advanced and have the AI cold call them and ask them these questions, but it's less likely. And so the thing is, understanding that in business, you're here to solve people problems. People will give you money. If you understand what the real problems are from those people, you can use AI to analyze those patterns and then give you insights on where to go. But what most people do is they skip the step and they just say, AI, create a business plan. It's not like, hey, AI, I've interviewed 100 people with this painful problem. I asked them these questions. Here's what they said to me. Now could you make my Alex Ramosi irresistible offer, right? Versus going right to Alex Ramosi's irresistible offer.
I love that the final outcome out of our discussion today is that, guess what? Business is a people game. It's
Always
about
is,
people.
right?
And yeah, all of the AI in the world, if it's just interacting with itself, it doesn't really do much. But if it makes our lives better as human beings, this is very exciting. I'm super excited for where we're heading. It's wild, but let's finish it up at this point, Dylan. There's been fantastic. Any final comments? Perhaps what are you expecting to watch for, or as a business owner, entrepreneur, is there anything that's coming that you're like, oh, this is a total game changer, or are we already in the revolution, as it were?
I mean, we're in it. I mean, if you think of, the thing is, we get really, it's called the hedonic treadmill. We get really accustomed to things really quickly. Like 3 years ago, if you were in a coma for 3 years, you came out and you told people about ChatGPT, their minds would be blown off the shoulders. But now, like, oh yeah, the world at my fingertips. I just ask questions that gives me all the answers I could ever think of in an instant. Old news, right? And because we adapt to it really quickly. What I would say more than anything is, I would look at the foundations of your business, right? For anybody listening, I would look at and say, okay, what is the underlining systems? Even if it was done by humans, what are the systems of my business, right? From marketing to website to lead opt-in to lead nurture to sales event to fulfillment to even offboarding customers, right? And then start looking at those pieces and build systems that have some AI elements inside of them, but build systems for each one of those categories and pieces. Because at the end of the day, for any of the systems that I built, me switching out from GPT-3 to GPT-4 to GPT-5, whatever, that's just switching out an API key. But if you build a system, right, you have a system in place, then no matter whatever AI comes in, you can just hot swap out those systems or the APIs, and you have a new AI in place. So that's what I would say is look at your things and just try to replace your business one system at a time until finally so much work is getting done. You now free yourself up of 20 or 30 or 40 hours of work a week, and then you can focus on critical human to human behaviors or other things that the AI can't do, that you can now have an unfair advantage, which means your unfair advantage is more time to focus on the important, urgent elements of your business and less things on just like the day-to-day minutia.
That is awesome. I mean, I think most entrepreneurs would love to be in that second place. The first place. The dream, being able to look at the powerful discussions, the powerful decisions, conversations with other human beings that aren't possible if I'm trapped in and exhausted by doing a 60-hour week. And that's really the opportunity that you're speaking to there. Yeah. That's super cool. Mate, thank you so much for joining me on the Visible Workplace podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. One more time, what is your website if people want to get in contact with you?
Yeah. It's the website's DylanJWatkins.com. Email's Dylan@DylanJWatkins. Feel free to shoot me an email. You can check me out. I have a bunch of tutorials and things on YouTube under my name. If you're a TikToker, you can find me there too. I talk about a lot of these systems and stuff. And the world's evolving quickly, right? And so evolve or die, right?
Evolve or die. I love it. Dylan, thanks, mate. It's been sensational. I hope everyone got a whole lot of value out of this, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The Visible Workplace. Catch you guys then.
Thanks for tuning into the Visible Workplace podcast. Subscribe for more productivity tips and share with friends. We love your feedback, so please rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform. For more tips and tools, visit www.magicboards.io. Thanks again, and see you next episode. Disclaimer: the information and ideas discussed in this episode are general in nature and do not take into account your specific circumstances. You should seek specialist advice for any medical, financial, emotional, mental, or other difficulties that you are facing with appropriate specialists and professionals so that they can apply your specific circumstances and give you the required advice.